Okay, so why we do informed consent?
To allow the patient to know all the details available in the procedure available in the clinical trial.
Or protocol.
So they will be aware of risk, benefits, and procedures of the trial. So there won't be no misconduct.
Okay. So when we talk about informed consent, we know it's a fundamental, ethical, as well as the legal requirement in clinical trials. Right? We talk about the 4 basic principles, right? We talked about the autonomy. Autonomy means what? Sorry.
Fair distribution, fair practices.
So we should respect the person. We should make them well informed about the trial. We should take their consent. Then only they should participate in the research. So informed consent is a ethical as well as a legal requirement in clinical trials. Okay, so can any participant take part in the research as long as they haven't signed the informed consent? What do you think?
No, ma'am.
No.
No, ma'am.
Ma'am.
No, right? So informed consent is the first thing or the first step that is being carried before we allow the participant to take part in the research, right? So the first thing that we do is we take the informed consent, and once the patient agreed to take part in the research, so how that agreement is considered? So it's a oral, written. What do you think? What do you think?
Written.
Signature. Document.
Signed and written.
Informed consent.
Right. So they sign the informed consent document, they sign and date the informed consent document, then that informed consent, their consent is considered to be the valid consent. So as long as it's a oral consent, we won't consider it to be a valid consent, and we won't allow the subject to participate in the research, right? So before we do any study related procedure, we make sure that the subject has given the written consent by signing and dating the informed consent form, right? So when we talk about the informed consent process, the informed consent process relies on 3 principles. Okay, so these 3 principles are according to the Belmont report, right? So the first principle talks about information. That is, first we need to provide the complete information about the trial to the subject. So that information is present in patient information sheet. It's a part of informed consent document. So the first few sheets that you see in the informed consent document, in which the complete information about the trial is being documented, like what is the aim of doing this research, what is the study design, how many patients are taking part in this research, what are the benefits of taking part in the research, what are the risks associated with research if the subject get injured during the trial, so what will be the compensation, the financial compensation, the money that will be given to the subject for their subject participation, what is the amount of money that will be given, what are the subjects' right when they are participating in the trial, so whom to contact in case of emergency, what we are going to do with their data, how we are going to keep their data confidential, is there any ethical body who is going to review the study. Okay, so all these information is present in the patient information sheet, which is a part of informed consent document. So this complete information is being communicated to the subject by whom? Yes?
Investigator.
By the
Investigator.
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 Yes, so the investigator, the first step is communicating the complete information about the trial to the subject. So that is the first principle. The second principle talks about comprehension, means the complete information that we have passed, that we have communicated to the subject, that information should be completely understood by the subject. So it's not just the information is being passed to the subject and we are done. No. So the information that we have passed to the subject, that information should be completely understood by the subject. If the subject does not understand the complete information, still it will be considered to be an invalid informed consent process. Okay. So first we need to provide the information, complete information to the subject. Then we make sure that that information is being completely understood by the subject. Okay. And the third principle is of voluntariness, means that their participation should be what?
It's on decision
Voluntary.
making.
Yeah, it should be a free consent. Their own will. It should come out from their own will that they are willing to take part in the clinical trial. And this voluntariness, this willingness should not be under any pressure, right? They should not be under any influence when they are deciding whether they should participate in the trial or not. So after they are being provided with the information, they have understood the information, they are being provided with the written document, the patient information sheet, sorry, which gives the complete information about the trial. When everything is clear to them and they are being provided with the ample of time. So there are the few key terms that you should know, that in informed consent we make sure that the ample of time is being given to the subject, means the sufficient time is being given to the subject to consider their participation, right? So if they want to, 1 or 2 days time is being given to them. If they want to consult their primary physician and their family doctor, or they want to check with their relatives, their friends, so they are free to consult with them and then take the decision whether they are willing to take part in the trial or not. Okay, so ample of time is being given them, the written document is being provided to them, and if they have any queries, any concern, they are always free to raise their concern, raise their queries to the investigator, and investigator should answer those queries to their level of satisfaction. One more thing to be have a note of, and it is very important, that the language of the informed consent document should be very simple. Okay, so the document should not contain the medical terminologies. So all those medical terminologies should be explained in the simple terms. Okay, like we talk about hypertension. So hypertension, the simple term for hypertension will be what?
BP.
Blood pressure.
BP.
High blood pressure.
High
Blood
blood
pressure.
pressure.
Yes, high blood pressure. So these kind of simple terms that the normal layperson can understand, that type of language should be used in the complete informed consent document, as well as during the counseling of the patient. We should not use any medical terminologies. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Then after that, the patient give their consent in writing by signing the informed consent form.
Form.
Right. So, as I mentioned, that informed consent document comprises of two documents, that comprises of two parts, that is part A and part B. Part A talks about the patient information sheet, in which the complete information about the trial is present, and the informed consent form is a form itself, says that it is a informed consent. So it's a consent form in which the patient give their consent that yes, they are willing to participate in this particular trial after being well informed about the trial. Okay. And this informed consent documents need to be reviewed and approved by the ethics committee before we can use these documents for the purpose of trial. Okay. These documents should be reviewed and approved by the ethics committee. And if we are doing any changes, sorry, to these documents, we make sure that those changes to the ICD document should be sent to the ethics committee again. Ethics committee will look into the changes, will review the changes, and again they will provide the approval for the changes. Then again, when we have the new version of informed consent document, the subject, the trial participant need to reconsent the document. Why we take the reconsent from the subject? That the subject knows about the new changes that is being added in the informed consent document. Okay. Is this much clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So the primary responsibility of the researcher is to obtain the written informed consent. So informed consent should be the written informed consent, means the subject needs to sign and date that informed consent personally, as well as the person who has counseled the subject, means the investigator, they also need to sign and date that document personally, plus making sure that we don't use any stamps. Okay, no dated stamps should be used in the informed consent documents. And the copy of the informed consent that is being signed one copy should be given to the subject as well for their purpose of reference and record. And one copy will be kept at the site and be maintained as a regulatory document. Okay.
Ma'am, why there isn't any stamp?
Sorry.
Ma'am, why there isn't any stamp in that paper?
We have dated stamps, right? So we don't use any stamps because if we just put the dated stamp, it doesn't give us the clarity whether this process was properly carried out by the researcher. Okay. And whether the particular process was carried on same date or not. Okay. So if we just put the stamp, we are not sure whether the process was being carried by the researcher properly or not.
Okay.
Again, this is very, very sensitive, you can say, or it's a very important requirement of the clinical trials. Right. So we don't use any stamp when it comes to subject related. Okay. So if the subject is not capable of signing the informed consent, then we can ask their legal acceptable or legal authorized representative to sign on behalf of the subject. Do you know who the LARs? Any idea?
In the children,
Legally authorized representative.
Ethics.
Yes. So who are they?
Their children, if people are
parents,
elder people than their parents or their children or spouse.
Family member, ma'am.
Okay. So these are, when we talk about these legally acceptable representative LARs, so these are any individual who is being authorized under the law to give the consent to take the decision on behalf of the subject, right? So they can be, like you all mentioned, they can be their parents, they can be their children's wife, husband, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
if we are doing the trial for the children, then their parents will act as what? LAR?
LM.
Yes. If the parents are quite old, and they are not capable enough to take their decision, then who will be the LAR in that case?
Their
Their
children.
their children. If husband is maybe in not a mentally sound position to take the decision for their participation in the research, so who will be the LAR for
Why?
right, and vice versa. Okay, so if the subject is not capable enough to take the decision or can sign the informed consent, then we can ask their LARs to sign on behalf of the subject to confirm their participation in the trial. Then, if a participant or LAR is illiterate, okay, then a literate impartial witness should be present. Do you have any idea who the impartial witness is? Hmm? Have we discussed? No? Okay.
They should not involve in study, which are not
Independent
independent.
not involved in that study.
Okay. So when we talk about witness, who is a witness? In courts, we have witnesses, right? So what is the role of witness?
That person will
To provide proof.
Yeah. Okay.
Approvable.
To confirm, right?
To clarify the situation.
give
A
clarification.
person who sees the process and will clarify and prove that the process is done.
Yes.
Yeah.
As per the family member. Illiterate cases.
So impartial means the person who is
Not biased
not
towards.
biased, right?
Biased.
Yes. So impartial witness is a person who is being involved in the trial when the subject or the subject LAR is illiterate. Means when the subject, sorry, just give me a minute. When the subject or the LAR both are illiterate, means they are not able to read what is present in the document, or if they are not able to sign the document. Okay. Or if in case there is some visual impairment there because of the literacy issue, they are not able to read the document, or because of some visual impairment, they are not able to read the document, or they are not able to sign the document, then in that case, we need an impartial witness. Okay, so impartial witness is a person who is independent of the trial, the person who has no relationship with the trial, who is not involved in the trial. That person will act as an impartial witness. So, the possible choices for impartial witness can be any family member, can be any friend, it can be any clinic staff who is not involved in the trial, or who can be any layperson. So there is no regulatory provision that this particular person should act as an impartial witness. So for impartial witness, the person who is independent of the trial, who has no interest in the trial, who cannot be influenced by the people who is involved in the trial, that person can act as an impartial witness. So that person can be any family member, any friend, any clinic staff, any layperson can act as an impartial witness. Okay. So so throughout the process of informed consent, these impartial witnesses are present, not only during the process of signing the document. So from the starting point, when we have started counseling the patient, till that time point, till the end of the consent process, this impartial witness will be present. So what impartial witness will attest is to see that whatever information that the investigator is communicating to the subject is correct. So the same information is present in the ICT document as well. Plus, to make sure that the information that is being communicated to the subject, that to make sure